Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Steph and today we are doing the ultimate book video. So if you've not seen the ultimate book video before, I believe that it's originated by Haley Fam, but either way, I will link a few down below so you can check out other content creators' ultimate book videos. But in these videos, basically you go to a bookstore, you can go to the library, you can go to multiple bookstores and the library. The limit does not exist. You go book shopping, book browsing, buy a few books, read them in the vlog. The whole vlog is just about books, books, books. So in this ultimate book video, I am going to Barnes & Noble, I'm going to an indie, one of my favorite indie bookstores, I'm going to the library, and I will be reading 2 books from my book shopping excursion and telling you all about them. So I really hope that you're excited to spend the next couple of days with me while we go book shopping and just read all of the books, manifesting 5 stars. We are manifesting that we will get maybe a 5-star in here, if not like a new favorite. So let's go book shopping. Hello friends, we are officially at the bookstore. I stopped and had a coffee date with a friend and now I'm at Barnes & Noble. So I have a few things in mind that I'm interested in. Like I am in a thrillery mood a little bit, but I could go for a fantasy. I've been thinking about Fathom Folk recently. Problem I have with a thriller is that I don't typically like to own thrillers because I tend to just unhaul them. I'm never gonna reread it. So I'm not sure that I would buy a thriller today. Maybe if I do end up going to the library, I will get something there. But I also weirdly in the mood for a contemporary fiction book. We'll see. We'll see what we get.
What's the lie inside your mind, my dear? And could you find it terrifying there? You always let me know, you always let me go, my still, it's a t-shirt in the backseat of your car. Head down just like your father taught you. Stick around when the walls start to fall. Good God, does anybody notice you sat at the table and you listened to her scream? I know we've had a few too many. I'm not sure what to believe. Beauty queens and rock and rollers, crystal glasses, Coca-Cola. Nice to meet you, nice to know you. Better have listened to all that they told you. They took notes and put you on a pedestal. I'm Simon, I'm on my knees. Why are you so quiet, darling? Don't you know what this all means? Beauty queens and rock and rollers, crystal glasses, Coca-Cola. Nice to meet you, nice to know you. Better have listened to all that they told you. To all that they told you. All that they told you.
Okay, besties, we are back, and I went to 2 bookstores in the last 2 days. So yesterday I spent like 2 hours in Barnes & Noble, I'm gonna say, and I know that's not extreme, but I guess because I go to the bookstore so often, I was like, whoa, I spent so much time here. So yeah, I went to Barnes & Noble yesterday, and then today I hit up a local indie bookstore. They had a great fantasy selection. I feel like my Barnes & Noble doesn't have the best fantasy selection. Like, it doesn't move or shift or change very often. It's kind of just the same things. They're not the best at getting the most recent fantasy releases, and I know that's all dependent on like demographic and what's selling and what's moving. And this indie bookstore that I go to, it has a pretty good fantasy selection in the sense that I feel every time I go to it, they have something I haven't really seen before. And so there were a couple things that I really wanted to get. But this year, I'm trying to restrain myself from buying any old fantasy book that I see. Just because I'm a fantasy lover doesn't mean that I'm going to like every fantasy book that I see, unfortunately. But it was really fun to look through that fantasy section and see a bunch of stuff that I hadn't seen before. And in this scenario, I got 3 books that I wasn't really expecting to get. Although one of the books, I did go in with the intentions of like, if I see it, I'll get it. And I was kind of surprised to see it at the indie bookstore, only because I didn't know it was going to be this popular, and that is Heartless Hunter. So this one is supposed to be a enemies to lovers fantasy romance. It's technically YA, which, you know, I'm iffy about YA these days, but I'm really trying to fall back in love with it. But previously, like back in 2018 or something, I really enjoyed The Last Namansara, I think is what it's called. I'll pop a picture up right here. But I really enjoyed this series. It wasn't a series that became extremely popular. I don't even know if it was that well loved, but it is a trilogy. I read the entirety of the trilogy. I enjoyed all of the books. The first book was the strongest for me, but I, for the most part, enjoyed all of the books. So I was really excited to realize that this was the same author. Like I said, this is supposed to be enemies to lovers, and it's supposed to be a witch and a witch hunter. So I'm excited about this one. I've seen really good reviews, so I figured I would give this one a chance. I feel like I have a better chance of loving this book because I've previously liked the author than some other YAs that caught my eye. So I got this. So the first book that I got from Barnes & Noble was Bloom by Delilah Dawson, and because I got it yesterday, I did end up starting it, and I'm already really loving it. So this is supposed to be a horror, and I think it lands under that like weird girl fiction / horror, which I really love, but I'm a little bit nervous that this is going to turn into something like Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, because I can't say that I enjoyed my experience reading that book, and it is a book about 2 women becoming obsessed with each other, and this is following that same trajectory, but it's a bit different. Like, it's already in tone much different. It's giving me the tone, weirdly, of Comfort Me with Apples, which I really, really loved. And that was a very unsettling novella. I didn't see it coming, but I know other people have, so it has like very mixed reviews, but I really enjoyed it. And so far I'm like 6 chapters into this, which is like roughly 70 pages. And so far our main character, Rosemary, who goes by Ro, she meets Ash at the farmer's market, and Ash runs a stall at the farmer's market. She has soaps and cupcakes, and she has plants, and she seems to be an amazing gardener. And so Ro becomes obsessed with Ash, but it's almost in like a giddy crush type of way. And I think her obsession mainly comes from the fact that she has never really looked at women this way, and so she's like, wow, I didn't realize that I was into women type of thing. So her whole thing doesn't feel weird, I guess. It feels like having a crush and you just so excited to see them every week, but it is kind of devolving into a weird dynamic. So far I really like the writing because the tone is, I don't really know how to explain this other than like upbeat and a little bit whimsical. And I think that's because Ro loves stories. She loves fairy tales. She's a teacher, a literature teacher. And so she's just very much a whimsical person because of the things that she loves and consumes. So I'm really enjoying the writing and the tone. I'm scared. I'm scared to see where it goes. And then the last book I got was heavily inspired by 2 things. I really have been wanting this book. I've been eyeing it for a while, but it was also on the table called Hot Mess Express. And on that table had books like Bunny and Cleopatra and Frankenstein and Night Bitch and Big Swiss. So those are the type of like weird girl books that I tend to really like. And while this book has been on my radar, I had no clue that it fell under the weird girl fiction category, and that's You Exist Too Much. And so I was reading the synopsis and I realized that there is another situation where our main character becomes obsessed with people. So like, even though she gets into a relationship that's very comfortable, she becomes very bored by it, and she decides to pick up other obsessions again, and she kind of falls back into her obsessive behavior and longings. And so she goes to therapy, and her therapist calls her a love addict, I guess. And so I am very intrigued by this. So this will be the other book that I for sure will be reading, and I'm really, really excited about it. I've heard nothing but good things, so I'm hoping that this is like a banger, 5-star. What if both of these are 5 stars? Anyway, these are the 2 that I will for sure be reading, and they both fall under the weird girl fiction. It's finally sunny out, so I think I might sit by the pool, but I do have a hair appointment at 5. So when you next see me, hopefully I'll have a hair transformation.
You say you wanna make it happen. You know what I want. Don't try to fight the heavens. Good girls aren't the one. I'm a flower in the bloom, like a shower you with love. You can keep the keys to your dreams. Say the magic word, you know I'm all yours. This love is a free, but don't want dreams. You took the words right.
Good morning, besties. I just rolled out of bed. Well, to be honest, I've been up. Like, I have this habit of getting up at like 6:30 in the morning and just laying in bed. I should say waking up. I don't get up. I just wake up and then I lay there in bed. So yeah, I've been laying in bed for hours, but I finally rolled out of bed, and I needed to talk to y'all immediately because I finished Bloom last night. I finished Bloom in the middle of my hair appointment, actually. It was like right before the end of my appointment. I finished the book. Luckily, my hairdresser and I are both very shy, and so we don't chat a ton. She is very awesome, but like, I'm just not super chatty if I don't have to be, and I know she's really shy, so it just works, you know, it just works out. So I got to process for a time, not only my hair, no, why? And I still don't have a rating. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't know if I'll ever rate this book because I'm not sure how I feel about it. Part of me is like, yes, 4 stars, absolutely loved this. And then the other part of me is like, did I hate this book? but it does give me that same visceral feeling that I had when I read Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke. Very different books, but they still have that same vibe, I guess, like that very uncomfortable feeling the entirety of the book. I think the difference here is the anticipation of what's gonna happen, whereas in Things Have Gotten Worse, that is just kind of grotesque very quickly and progressively. I feel like this one is such a slow burn, but it still makes you feel uncomfortable the entire time because there's like this anticipation of something weird going on under the surface. And in so many ways, you could guess exactly where this is going, but in other ways, the reveal, I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting it, and it really grossed me out. Okay, it grossed me the fuck out. I think the thing about this book that really works as well is the tone. I said before, it kind of has this upbeat, hopeful tone, and it's especially interesting because our main character, Ro, she is falling in love with a woman for the first time, and she's really exploring these parts of her identity and herself and like how she feels so different about women than she does about men. And so she has like this crush, this really innocent crush. So the tone just feels really giddy and a little bit hopeful, but she's also nervous. So the tone that we're getting and the story that we're getting kind of are in opposition to one another in so many ways, but like the tone continues till the very end, and I'm just like, I don't know, this book did something to me. Like, it made me feel so many feelings, and I don't even know how to describe them other than like I was uncomfortable and it made me question so much. It just made me feel sick, okay? But ultimately, I had a lot of fun with this one. I had a lot of fun. The two books that keep coming to mind for me when I think of this book, and not because of what happens in the book, it's more of the tone and the way that things are written, but also how uncomfortable it makes you feel, is, like I've been saying, Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, but also Comfort Me with Apples. Very different, I mean, outcomes and like what's happening, but the tone and just like the eeriness and the way that it makes you feel uncomfortable. And it's a story that quickly devolves into something that you're like, what the fuck? I think comparing something to Comfort Me with Apples is a little bit dangerous in terms of what happens and what is happening in Comfort Me with Apples. I just more so mean the tone of it all. Anyway, I'm gonna stop comparing it to things. I really, really enjoyed this. I feel like I would give it a 4 stars, but I still don't know. It got me. And then last night before bed, I started You Exist Too Much. I'm really not far. I was very tired yesterday, so I ended up falling asleep like 2 chapters in. So far, I'm really liking the writing. I'm not loving the audiobook, so I think I'm gonna continue reading this physically. You can probably tell there's a big ass pile of laundry behind me. I have to clean the house today. It's Friday. Also, I start my new job on Monday, and I'm nervous. I've been on vacation for like 10 days, and I have decided that I should be a woman of leisure, but unfortunately, I'm going to work on Monday.
You're sick of the city and due for a change, but I need you to stay. Just as long as it takes me to memorize your face, I'll draw it all day. Till your eyebrows point to your jawbone in just the right way. If you made a mistake, you can come back for a replay. I've been thinking about you these days, but you'll crash your car if you change your heart, making U-turns on the freeway, on the freeway, on the freeway. can jump in Superior or wait on the shore and feel bad about ways that we've naturally faded. I'm fine with my life, but I'd probably trade it to see if we'd make it. You can come back for a replay. I've been thinking about you these days, but you'll crash your car if you change your heart, making U-turns on the freeway, on the freeway, on the freeway.
Hey, so I was supposed to be cleaning, but instead I sat down and read the entirety of You Exist Too Much. So this read really quickly. This is a little under 300 pages. Something about this, compulsively readable, but I ended up having extremely mixed feelings about this. This to me falls a little bit more in like the sad girl, hot mess girl fiction, which I now understand why it was on that table. Basically, this is the fiction that has a very unlikable main character. So our protagonist is extremely unlikable and she has a lot of baggage in her life, and that baggage leads to a lot of very poor decisions. So she is a bisexual Palestinian woman living in the United States. She's grown up in different areas. When we meet her, she goes to New York, but her mother lives in Washington, D.C., so she kind of goes back and forth between there. But we see vignettes of her life in different places throughout the world. So there were a lot of things that should have worked for me in here. Specifically, I do like a really unlikable female narrator. There's just something about it, you know, there's something about it that really works for me. I think it's because oftentimes women are not allowed to be unlikable in society. And so when we have unlikable main characters, I really like it. Secondly, I really enjoy vignettes. This is told in a series of vignettes. And third, the obsession aspect. The obsession aspect to me said that this was gonna go maybe in a different direction than it did, but it made sense. Like, the obsession aspect is there and we explore it. So these are three things that really drew me to this book and should have worked for me, but in some cases didn't. And I think it all kind of comes down to the writing style and the aimlessness of this book. The interesting part is I don't always need a book to have a resolution or even a closed ending. I'm fine usually with open endings, but something about this book felt extremely aimless and like cyclical. And I believe that the messaging there is that the baggage that we carry is not that easy to just get over. So like I said, this is told in a series of vignettes. When we meet our narrator, she is basically in this relationship that's getting to be a little too comfortable for her. And she turns to cheating in order to combat that weird comfort feeling that she is falling into. But her girlfriend ends up figuring out that she's cheating, calls her out on it, and breaks up with her. And in this case, our protagonist knows at this point that she needs to go get help. So she ends up in this like rehab type facility where she is getting help for her love addiction. And so when this is happening, we start to see vignettes of our protagonist's life. So we see the really toxic relationship between her and her mother. Her mother has a lot of tendencies to critique her daughter in very, very harmful ways, as well as she's extremely homophobic. And when our main character has tried to come out to her or tried to allude to the fact that she might be gay or bisexual, her mother never takes it well. This leads us to see various toxic relationships that our main character enters into. Most of these relationships are her oftentimes getting taken advantage of, are her and this person forcing themselves to be closeted in some ways. Many of the women that she's in relationships with often tell her that they aren't gay, that they're straight, and that this is just experimentation, this is just fun, it means nothing to them. So we see a lot of toxic behaviors, and most commonly we see that our main character ends up in relationships with married people or people who are very emotionally unavailable. And so when she's in this rehab, she's very much exploring why these toxic and unavailable people and relationships are more desirable to her than an actual healthy relationship. There's a lot of intersectionality with her identities and the way that she interacts with the world and a lot of the baggage that she carries. On top of that, she's just not a very likable character in general, but in some ways I did really like her. I did like her bluntness. I felt for her, and I think a lot of that has to do with the relationships that she was in and the way that she was treated. Like, you just happen to feel this sense of empathy for her. I don't know, I just felt a sense of empathy for her, and maybe it was because of all of the different relationships that we get to see her in and the relationship with her mom. I had a lot of empathy for that, and I think that maybe the message of this book and the way that it all comes together is the fact that like letting go of our baggage isn't as easy as going to a 12-step program. But there were a lot of things about this book that also just didn't work for me. Again, I think there's a little bit of an aimlessness to this narrative. Also, there are some characters that I think are very irredeemable that we don't really get great conclusions with, I guess. In a lot of ways, excuses seem to be made for them time and time again. And I guess that may be a reflection of life and like what actually happens in the real world. But sadly, and more specifically, I think the number one thing that just didn't work that well for me and why I have so many mixed feelings is the narrative structure choice. Basically, we would get one story and that story would abruptly end like at a quarter of the way through the story, halfway through the story, a quarter to the end of the story, to interject different stories that seemingly relate. So like you'll be in the middle of a situation and she'll just cut it off and start this new story that is seemingly supposed to be connected to maybe a decision that the character is currently making or the repercussions of a decision that the character is making. So it would always go from present to past to present to past. But it still was very confusing, and the fact that we were told it in this particular way also made a lot of these characters blur together. So in some scenarios, it would take me a good while to like piece together what we were doing, especially in the beginning. It was very jarring. And I think that's the only way to describe it. There were just so many jarring transitions in here that overall I didn't really feel were necessary to make this a better or more impactful story. So yeah, I mean, there was a lot in here that worked for me. There was a lot of other things that didn't work for me, specifically storytelling. And I think some of the character choices and the aimlessness of this book made me feel very conflicted. So I feel like I want to give this a 3 stars, but part of me is like, maybe it's a 3.5 stars. So I think for right now, I'm going to settle on a 3.5. I mean, I flew through this. There were parts that I really, really liked. I think the first half for me was probably the strongest part. And then when we got to the latter half, I was kind of asking myself, when is this gonna end? When are we gonna get to the point of it all? But I do think that if you are someone who likes that sad girl, very unlikable main character type of literature, you might really enjoy this. Hello friends, I wanted to come back and close out this vlog, but I also wanted to show you that my bestie Erin did send me a book, and I did think about reading it for this vlog, but I think I want to save this for a different video that I have in mind. But anyway, she sent me Where the Dark Stands Still. This is supposed to be a YA fantasy romance that is about fae. I believe our main character, she has magic and she doesn't want it anymore, so she makes a deal with a devil-like creature to get rid of her magic. That's all I really know, and I know that it's supposed to be beautifully written. I've been very interested in this one. Like I said, I've been trying to fall back in love with YA, and I'm still wanting to do a dedicated video to falling back in love with YA, so I think I'm gonna save it for that, and we're just gonna close out the vlog. But thank you so much for spending the last couple of days with me and going on some bookstore adventures. If you've made it this far and you have nothing else to say, feel free to leave a book stack or book emoji down below, and I will talk to y'all in the next one. Bye friends.